Hi there, everybody. This is Lee, and talking about the media propaganda. That's always probably going to be with us. Certainly throughout the Trump administration. He is the president. For those of you who keep wanting to say he's not the president or he's not my president, he actually is the incoming or president elect of the United States. He was constitutionally elected. He it was a legal means of electing the president that was written into the Constitution over 200 years ago. It's the law of our land, using the Electoral College. There have been opportunities to abolish the Electoral College each and every single time that the electoral vote has exceeded the popular vote. This makes the fifth time, but each time that's happened, there was an opportunity to abolish the Electoral College. 16 years ago, this very same thing happened. Apparently, the Electoral College elected our president along with the Supreme Court. And the national popular vote total went to the opponent. I see it as a complicated type of race. Sometimes you have this Olympic sport where it's not the person who runs from point A to point B the fastest that wins. It's actually the person who, runs to this point, throws a shot put, rides a horse, and then shoots a gun. And then, sometimes these Olympic sports get kind of complicated and they're hard to follow, like our electoral process. But there are steps and a series of contests that have to be won by the candidate in order to before crossing the finish line and before being considered the winner. They have to do these certain steps, winning state by state by state, accumulating electoral votes in order to be considered the winner, just like that Olympic sport. So, sure, anyone can run out the gate, boom, 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 I made it over the finish line. And then there's people who have to point out and say, well, you didn't ride the horse, you didn't throw the shot put, you didn't shoot the gun, you didn't swim for a mile. So the other guy won, even though he made it over the finish line 10 minutes after you did. He did what he was supposed to do. He followed the rules that we put in place before the race started. And so, no matter what all that cheering of the crowd and your mom and dad, arguing with the official, all they want to, we have rules in this sport, and we have rules to our election, which have been abused this year. But there they are. And I still just have a hard time working up any amount of sympathy on behalf of the Hillary Clinton team, because this is the same team that used over 500 super delegates with votes about 10,000 each to cast on behalf of Hillary Clinton. They used super delegates to defeat Bernie Sanders. On top of using those superdelegates, because they were with Hillary Clinton even before the Democratic primary started, there was sufficient election fraud that occurred throughout the Democratic primary, targeted voter suppression, registration tampering, party switches, illegal voter purges, exit polling discrepancies, voting machine tampering, lack of security for voting machines, media collusion, corruption during the debates, where one team was given answers to debate questions and the other wasn't. So there was sufficient election fraud and campaign fraud and vote stealing, vote flipping, that the Hillary Clinton team was able to accumulate 184 delegates that should have gone to Bernie Sanders. If those 184 pledged delegates had been subtracted from Hillary Clinton's pledged delegate total and then added into Bernie Sanders, their rightful place, Bernie Sanders would have been the Democratic nominee. And so Hillary Clinton was selected by the Democratic National Committee to be the Democratic nominee. But she was not the true winner. The true winner of the Democratic primary was Bernie Sanders. And the fact that Hillary Clinton stumbled and flailed, even with all the help that she had been getting when it came down to a contest against Donald Trump, that was pretty much the case in point. She could not survive on her own in a contest against Donald Trump. And not only did she lose herself the White House, she lost the Senate, she lost the U.S. House, she lost various governorships, she lost various state legislatures on behalf of the Democratic Party because she hoovered up all the funding that was supposed to go to the state Democratic parties, the down ballot candidates, their campaigns. She took all that money for herself. And so she handicapped people down ballot from her and then created a negative force at the top of the ticket that sent people over to the Trump campaign. So when there's still talk of the 3 million votes, I consider the votes that the Hillary Clinton campaign defrauded from Bernie Sanders during the Democratic primary, meaning she was never the rightful nominee of the Democratic Party in the first place in order to run a race against Donald Trump. And then I consider the fact that quite a few of these popular vote totals came from California and New York. And we do have to remember that California and New York were sites of Democratic malfeasance throughout the primary against Bernie Sanders. Some of the most egregious acts of voter suppression, intimidation, fraud, vote tampering, party switching, things like this occurred in California and New York, to the point that the Associated Press decided to go ahead and call the election on behalf of, or the primary in California on behalf of Hillary Clinton even before the voting started. They called the election for her and they named her the Democratic nominee even before the California polls even opened. They asked the superdelegates how they planned to vote. The superdelegates hadn't even voted yet, and then they said, well, Hillary's the winner. And so they practically gave California to Hillary Clinton and actively suppressed the vote in California, along with a lot of vote tampering and deregistrations and purging and a lot of provisional ballot tampering, things like that occurred out in California. So I just don't really buy that 3 million votes in the first place because Hillary Clinton has a long resume that includes interfering with elections, both foreign and domestic, all around the world. She's very practiced and skilled at it. And then here in the States as well, as exhibited by the Democratic primary. So I'm not really buying the 3 million votes. I didn't buy the whole I have more delegates screeching that she did over and over during the Democratic primary, especially as we've seen information coming from WikiLeaks about how things like that were really done, including Project Veritas and all the proof that we've seen of just the monumental malfeasance by the Democratic National Committee to boost Hillary Clinton. It stands to reason that they continued that charade during the general election. So, I don't know what to tell you. Our U.S. Constitution claims and says and verifies and, says that Donald Trump is the president to come for 2017 and that Hillary Clinton is not. So, feelings are feelings, but reality is reality and facts are facts. It might take some people longer than others, but I think people who were watching the Democratic primary very closely and were participants and watching the action closely, the scales seem to have balanced, and not in a way that many people would have liked, but the universe does have a way of doing that. So I'm just going to wish everyone well, and maybe throughout the rest of December, people will get used to the fact that Donald Trump will be the president in January, and we will be under a Republican administration with a Republican Congress, likely a Republican Supreme Court, and Republican governorship majority, Republican state legislator majority. And so it's the Republican Party that has to be approached about abolishing the Electoral College since they hold the majorities everywhere. So, good luck with that. It might be able to be done. But in this instance, I do think that the Electoral College worked much in the way the superdelegates of the Democratic primary were intended to work to prevent an unsuitable candidate for president from ascending to the White House. But anyway, I'll just let people mull things over, and we'll see where we're at in January. Good luck.